Well, good morning, YouTube. Well, today I'm taking a step back into rural New England in the 1830s, and I'm visiting Sturbridge, Old Sturbridge Village, and it's the largest living history museum in the Northeast. And I'm going to take a walk around, and I will show you some of the highlights as we go. I was here 40-something years ago, a couple of times with my wife for different seasons. They're open year-round, and I guess I didn't come here in the winter, but I hear it's pretty interesting. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm running away from snow. All right, let's take a look, see what we can see. So my grandparents lived in New England. My mom from Massachusetts, my dad from Maine, and the thing that always tells me I'm back in Massachusetts, back home, homestead, is the stone walls.
Now, you're practicing quite a while.
So if you needed a container to drink from or store liquids in, a local potter would be able to do it. And here's the kiln, wood-fired, of course. They'd stack all the pots and stuff up in here, and then fire it up, brick up the entrance so that you'd be able to keep the heat in and fire it up. So one of the real nice things about the village here is that they didn't pave all the roads. It's nice and smooth, but it's basically as you would find the roads back in 1830. So from what one of the gentlemen in one of the buildings was telling me is that the village focuses on 1830, but it also does have, goes back to 1791 because they have a dam down here on the mill pond that was actually begun in 1790. So the people that owned the property at that time started that. So a couple of millstones. They're made out of granite, smoothed off, and the grooves in them, as they turned, one stone, the bottom stone stayed in place, top stone would move, and it would basically, these grooves would shear. So they didn't really grind as much as cut the grains finer. And every once in a while they'd have to point these up. They tell me that they wanted to keep it the thickness of a couple of layers of paper. So if you put 2 layers of paper together, that's how thick, how close these stones were.
You better give me a little more. So our corner roads are actually the lubrication for the stone.
Right.
And the dams on here shape the feed, and it feeds it in. There we go. That's better. Good.
So at Hancock, Shaker Village, you saw in a couple videos back, they're using a turbine. Before they had the turbine, they used a overshot wheel like this. Water comes in, fills up the buckets on the wheel, weight of the water turns it down, and powers underneath here. Huge wooden gear. Big gear turns a smaller gear, so more power. There's this big shaft. Runs more gears on up to the millstones up above. Now over here at the carding mill, I get a better idea of what they did with the turbine at the at Hancock. Same idea. Water comes in, shoots in here, turns a horizontal wheel, comes up to the big gears, and in this case, they're metal gears, because foundries were around, and then this powers the belts, just like in Hancock. The thing is, in Hancock we couldn't really see underneath and see what it all was, but here gets you an idea of what was all under the floor there and how they do it here. So two different kinds of wheels, two different applications. I think this one's more efficient. So back in the day, you get your sheep, get them sheared. You want to clean the wool up and get it all straight. Basically you're carding, which is using something like this, tons and tons of little fine, there's, you do it in pairs. And what with this is industrialization. All of these are the same kind of thing. They feed in the raw wool, and a little different one over here, but it would come out in sheets like this, all cleaned, all untangled, right direction. So, but all this was powered by all those belts we saw downstairs. You could also use water power for the sawmill, and same idea, that how this would work, and the same, you know, wooden things with gears, but in this case it triggered the up and down motion of the great big huge crosscut saw, or saw anyway, and it would move the carriage back and forth using the gears. So didn't have the big huge circular saws at that point. It had a lot of this kind. Of course, you know, remember from Shaker, they did have from the Hancock village, they did have a around that time they did have invented the circular saw, so they could cut it to length or rip them into smaller boards once they cut them out of the log. And of course, the water-powered saw was a vast improvement over this type of pit saw, where one guy standing on top, one guy underneath. I'm guessing he pulled the short straw because he gets buried in sawdust all day. So with the sawmill, if you look at an old board, you see the straight up and down cuts. That would have been that type of sawmill, but if you come down here a few boards, you see how this one, they're sort of circular. This would have been cut on a big circular saw. Not like that one, straight up and down. Okay, so here at the farm, no bales, all brought in loose, brought in through, piled up into the hay lofts above, everywhere you can. And then for milking, you could drop this down, you could throw the hay in here for the cows. So if you remember a couple of videos back with the at Hancock with the round barn, you can see that would be more efficient for a large number of milk cows, as opposed to, this is a small farm. So I know most of you know what hops from your beer. This is what it looks like when it's actually growing. So back in the day, let's say you needed to build a bridge across the stream. A lot of times you build a stone bridge, but sometimes it'd be a little too big a stream, or a little too hard to find the right stone. So you could build a wooden bridge. And when See a lot of these, or used to see a lot of these out through New England. They're all put together, a lot of wooden pegs. These are, some are bolted nowadays, but why would they do this? Well, you want to protect the wooden bridge from rain and snow and all that. If you put a roof over it, keep the bridge dry, it's going to last a lot longer. So that's why covered bridges. They're pretty cool. Well, that ends my my day here at Old Sturbridge Village, and if you get a chance to come, and it's right here on Route 20, I suggest get here early. There is a lot to see, and I was, like I said, I was here like 40 years ago, and it's still an amazing place to come visit. So, well, and I'll get back on the road. I'm nearing the end of Route 20, so I think that probably will be the next video unless I find something between here and there. See you later, YouTube.